everyone. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. So, if you're watching on YouTube, if you could please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, or if you're listening on Spotify, you can always follow us there. Every like and share and subscribe can help our channel to be seen by many more Stargate fans. So, we really appreciate it. And then we also have all of our socials listed up on the screen right now if you wish to follow us there. Okay, thank you, and I hope you enjoy. Bye. And to all the Stargate fans out there, we would love to hear from you and chat with you on our show. So if you're interested in doing that, please reach out to us via any of our social media platforms or email.
So we were talking for a while about when we finished Atlantis that we should do an episode specifically talking about Rodney, and not just his character development, but also some of the more important relationships throughout the show that he had, including family. So I thought we'd maybe have a special McKay episode. And to get things started, I think maybe we'll just share our first impressions we had of him and then contrast them with our final impressions. But before we get into that, I'd just like to invite everyone who's watching, if you have any kind of Stargate merch that you want to share, Stargate fan art, anything that you create that is Stargate related, or even if you just want to come and talk to us about why you love Stargate and why it's important to you, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here and we're very interested to see what you have and to hear about your interest in the series. But back to Rodney.
Yeah.
I thought it would be interesting to share our initial impressions and then also how we felt at the end, just because at least I feel for a lot of people, they maybe felt very differently about McKay.
Oh, I hear an ambulance or something.
Yeah, sorry about that. They felt very differently about McKay from the beginning to the end. I've heard that from many people, that they have a different impression. And so I don't know, maybe you want to go first and kind of share like what your first impression of was Rodney, and then I'll kind of share mine, and then we can maybe share our ending impressions.
Yeah. So, I mean, you probably remember kind of my first impression because, you first see McKay in SG-1, right? And so like there's those little like dynamics that he has with Carter. And so initially when I was doing the rewatch of SG-1, I couldn't remember any of Atlantis really, even though I had watched it once before. And so I couldn't like I had like a vague memory that I thought I had really loved that character, but I was really annoyed and did not like him on SG-1 when you're first introduced to him. So my initial reaction to him is like, oh my gosh, he's such an ass. Like he's so arrogant, he's so annoying. Like he didn't really, I think, in those episodes show any qualities that personality wise for that character, right? That is anything that would typically make you like that character. He's just like really annoying. And so my initial thought of him was like, ugh, McKay, like, I don't like him. And I think I remember telling you about this and you kind of like laughing and being like, just wait, like just wait to Atlantis. And I'm just like, yeah, I remember I swore I really liked that character. Like, I don't get it. Like, what did I like about him? And I was so confused. And so yeah, that was my initial reaction of McKay, was that he just really kind of annoyed me. I didn't like how he treated Carter, and the whole dynamic with Carter. It was just like gross to me. Like I just didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like the experience I have when I watched McKay and SG-1 is, for the most episode when he comes on, I mean, he comes on as this person that's supposed to help out and he's trying to be smarter than McKay. So you really feel like, okay, this guy is just super threatened, or he's tries to be
smarter than Carter.
Yeah, sorry, I misspoke. And but you get this impression that he's like super threatened. And so he's kind of just like one of these really typical like insecure scientists that, is behaving this way towards Carter because Carter's very obviously smarter than him. I know, like later on, you find out that he's actually really smart, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of the impression that the episode gives. Um, that he's very smart, but you know, she has this other way. I did feel the scene where he was talking about, like, he has this sort of scene at the end where he talks about wanting to be a pianist, and that how Carter has a certain way of seeing things that's maybe a little bit different and than him, and that he's too by the book kind of in a way. And I, to me, like that moment was a little bit redeeming for the
Mm-hmm.
character. But I have to say, like, overall, if you would have just asked me impression of this character, the biggest thing that I think is probably the takeaway is that I wouldn't really have expected it to be a character that came back. I mean, it was a
Mm-hmm.
character that, you know, maybe like for another episode, but it kind of really felt like, okay, this is someone that's here for this episode. The character undergoes this growth. The episode is concluded. And not that I wouldn't want to see them back, but that if the character didn't come back, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so in that case, and I think McKay actually did come back one more time in Stargate, and so I could have seen
Yeah.
also, okay, maybe the character comes back every once in a while to create this tension with Carter and be like another kind of like some of the IOA people that they invited in.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think I had the impression by the end of the episode that it could have ever really been a main protagonist. Is more
Yeah.
like a, you know, someone that could kind of work with Carter and provide a little bit of friction and maybe a little bit of growth each time, but not a lot. So that
Yeah.
was kind of my first impression. Like, you have this immediate in the beginning of the episode, oh wow, I really don't like this guy. He's an absolute jerk to Carter. To, okay, he's just, you know, because I mean, in Stargate, actually, that was quite a common dynamic, that the people would be invited in and then they would try and
Exactly.
act like better than the other ones. So I
Yeah.
think, but yeah, so I was, that was kind of my first impression. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I guess then, how do you feel like, because you said, I said to you, just wait, and you weren't sure like how it would turn out by the end. How did that change for you by the end of Atlantis?
Completely changed. Like McKay's one of my absolute favorite characters. Like I love McKay so much. like like I just I just feel like and I think it's interesting too in like the Wikipedia page it was mentioning that, which I didn't realize, it's not a surprise though, but it was mentioning that McKay got most screen time.
Really? Okay.
Him and Shepard I think got the most screen time, but he got like the most. And really if you think about it and kind of like reflect on like how sometimes there was like episodes that were solely about what was happening to McKay. And there seemed to be a lot of those, but I feel like he got so many like interesting storylines, and I feel like the character development from the time you first are introduced to him in SG-1 to the very end, like, triples, or quadruples. Like, it's like there's just so much with that character that, like, I feel like, you're really able to kind of dive into his brain a bit. And it's not so surface level of like, oh, he's just being an arrogant ass that's really annoying and likes Carter and is kind of like in a weird way kind of misogynistic at times, and like like it goes away from that, and you start to realize like, oh, that's just a cover up because like he actually is very insecure. And then once you actually get to see like how he interacts with other people, he does actually really care for people, and he is really smart, and like so it's like you start to see all of this develop over time. Plus I do feel in shows just in general, usually with characters, the actor themselves as well also starts to portray that character more and more in a way that works really nicely. Usually like that's why I like TV series stuff, is because like if you've ever noticed like with other TV shows, like usually the beginning always feels a little bit like
Mm-hmm.
uncertain, a little bit like you don't know how to feel about everything or everyone. And then as you continue to watch a show, you start to notice like what, or at least that's how it is for me, where I'll start to notice the characters that become my favorites and stuff. And and then you can really get into the story. So yeah, it did completely shift. he's one of my favorite characters, both because you start to see also like the really funny side too. Like there's really like funny things that happen with his character. um so there's like a mix of humor and arrogance, and he's always helping people. Like he's always, it's, you know, that kind of ongoing joke of how, you know, you make him feel like he's going to die and he'll help figure out the solution,
Yeah.
you know. You know, and so, and then like how he's like a bit of like a, what's the word, like a hypochondriac, right, where like he's always thinking he's catching everything and dying and stuff. And so it's just like all of that blended together. I just like, I really love that character. So yeah. But how about you?
I mean, I probably it's very similar to you because I also he's one of my favorite characters. And I mean, I think kind of adding to everything you said, something that is particularly special about a lot of characters in Stargate that I think, and I know we mentioned this about Universe, but I think that it is actually the case in SG-1 and Atlantis is that there is this multidimensionality to them. And even though, especially in SG-1 and Atlantis, that a lot of the characters are very um, competent. They're extremely good at what they're doing. They're extremely smart to a very unrealistic degree. I think that the fact that they have these kind of, you know, negative characteristics to the characters or flaws or quirks in a way, I think that's something that sort of it makes McKay more relatable. And I think they did a really good job because I mean, watching Atlantis, a lot of people would say, okay, looking at McKay, he's the Carter of SG-1 or Atlantis. And I think in some ways, like he's that scientist role, but I think overall, like he has many differences that I think kind of really add to this depth. Like Carter's had this, you know, situation where, you know, she didn't really have the same inadequacy issues in terms of her knowledge, but she did have this weird relationship with her father. She had difficulty being close to people and, you know, some other things. And I also think that they kind of softened her character, which gave it like, you know, another layer of realism. I think McKay has his similar family issues when you see his dynamic with his sister, and maybe you can see that like when you see his dynamic with his sister, it almost gives a little bit of insight of where there might be some like misogyny or a little bit of envy. Because I think she is smarter than him. I mean, it's kind of implied like she's the gifted one, like the naturally um, gifted one that kind of could, you know, do it all better than him, but isn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so you see a little bit of that where his like that insecurity could come from. But I love that they maintain, despite that he kind of has this development, some of the things that are kind of at the core they maintain. Like he needs to eat and he has anxiety. And you know, whereas I mean Carter always reacted to things in a stress, but like can do kind of way. So it was more like a this sort of let's get to it kind of way. And I think that was necessary for her role in SG-1, everything
Yeah.
considered. Whereas McKay has a different sort of response when he's under pressure.
Oh
And
yeah.
I mean, in the end, the result is the same, but I think it adds a certain layer there that kind of gives, I don't want to say like realism, but it gives this kind of like relatability to the character that I think is interesting. And so I would say overall, those aspects kind of it made the character like really, really enjoyable to watch. And
Yeah.
you know, even at the end, like the character wasn't perfect. Like McKay was never perfect, but there was some growth. And I think it was really, really nice to watch the character kind of struggle to become and also to see the things around the character that kind of made them what they were.
Yeah. And I think too, like they really have him initially, if I'm remembering correctly, he kind of initially kind of pushes himself away from getting close to everyone that he works with, right? Like even just like with friendships, like at first it's like he's always trying to like prove himself and make it seem like he's smarter than everyone. um and so, but I feel like as the show progresses, like while he still does that, he allows himself to somewhat, I think, open up more and allows himself to become friends with everyone. Whereas at
Hmm.
first, I think he felt very like the other person and kind of pushed himself away from everyone and that he didn't really fit in. Where I think by the end, I feel like he probably feels like he fits in with everyone.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's such a good point. That's very true. And so I think that that aspect was very interesting to watch. And he had really like I have to say like there were some really fascinating dynamics between him and Taylor and him and Ronan and him and
Yeah.
Shepard by the end. And um I mean I remember just kind of going over some of the like a little bit seriousness in Atlantis, but I thought that this was kind of powerful was the time I think it was when they were dealing with that interdimensional um, bridge, and McKay thought
Oh,
he
yeah.
found a solution to something, and then remember in the end he didn't. It actually did overload, and there was problems. But he asked like Shepard to trust him or something, and Shepard did, and then he kind of broke that by kind of pushing it and being wrong. And actually, I thought that was really somehow very powerful because it kind of did
Yeah.
create this like, oh, well, it'll take a while for you to earn back my trust. But in a way, it was also kind of real. And I think added this layer that as their relationship kind of repaired itself, it was much more powerful because, you know, it's
Yeah.
kind of like they had been through. I mean, it was a very, very serious moment, actually, in terms of
Yeah.
that. And I mean, you know, so
That's a really good point because I think I never really thought about the fact that I think maybe up until that point, any like crazy thing that was happening that McKay helped with, usually like everyone didn't fully trust him. Like they figured like they tried to get him to help come up with something, and like usually it would then save the day kind of thing. But like there is always that like skepticism there. So I never really thought about the fact of that moment. Like I'd forgotten about that. And then it didn't work anyway. So it's like,
yeah,
which I kind of like that because it kind of takes away like what you would maybe expect to happen
yeah.
in shows like this. So yeah.
Yeah. And I also feel like another like I mean I know there's some like episodes that are kind of specific, but I also feel like it was a bit had an impact on Rodney when Beckett died.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think too, like that's why I think it was always so strange when the fake Beckett came back.
The fake Beckett.
The fake Beckett, the clone. Um, because that dynamic was slightly different too. Like, I mean, it was the same, but not like,
Mhm.
but yeah, I feel like it was a very cute dynamic I think him and Beckett had. And it's almost like um McKay has this way of when he really cares for his friends, like he doesn't want to fully let up that he does.
Yeah.
And every now and then that will come out where you can tell like, he's really like he really was attached to Beckett and how much like it affects him too when Beckett dies. And um yeah, it's interesting. Like I just really love like how the actor for McKay is able to just like portray like all these complicated emotions. I think he's such an amazing
Yeah.
actor. um I'd love to see him in more things because I haven't actually seen him act in things outside of Atlantis. I know he's been in other things, but I've never seen it because I just think like he's able to just really portray those emotions so well. And so like when like his dynamic with Beckett, is something that has always like kind of stood out in my mind, like with that episode where Beckett dies and everything. It's just very like powerful. So
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I should mention before, just so since we did talk about universe, I am not at the part where McKay has appeared in universe. So we are
oh, does he
actually
appear in universe?
apparently like I would have to say that we only are discussing McKay until I don't know how far you are in universe, but I was away for a while, and so I didn't
Yeah,
get to
I
get into
haven't
it.
watched it in a like I'm still I'm, in all honesty, I'm still struggling. I'm struggling to always feel like watching it. Um so the last episode of Universe I watched was episode 6. So that's all.
Okay. So we're
Yeah.
actually the same we were, but yeah, yeah. So I'm the same too. I didn't get any further because I got to like I think the second to last episode of season one. So maybe I
Oh
watched
wow.
one more since we but then I was gone. So but apparently because here for on his wiki page it says first it shows the first appearance is 48 hours in SG-1. And then the last appearance is Seizure in Stargate Universe.
Oh, okay.
So,
It's just so interesting. It's weird how memory works because it's like I have seen Universe once and but I don't remember any of it really. Like it's kind of like when I've started to rewatch it now, little things like I feel like I kind of feel familiar that I remember, but I don't really remember any of the main storyline or who comes into the show. Like I had zero memory of like, characters from SG-1 or Atlantis coming onto Stargate Universe. Like I had forgotten that happened altogether. Like I forgot O'Neill was on it briefly and all those things. So it's weird how memory works,
yeah.
where it's like,
I mean, like out of curiosity, because I honestly forgot both of these things when I rewatched Atlantis. Did you remember that McKay's sister shows up and that he dates Kate? Because those two things I did not remember at all.
with Atlantis again, like I didn't remember anything from it. I
Yeah.
didn't um I like it's weird. It's like my memory of the show was just like little bits and pieces of things that I remembered. Like I remembered how I really loved the Taylor character and Ronan, and I loved their dynamic, but I didn't even remember really like some of the members of the team. Like I didn't remember Shepard. I didn't remember like Weir all that much. Like it was just weird. Like there was a lot that I did not remember. So I think like in terms of specifics, there wasn't really anything that I remembered rewatching Atlantis either. It was just like it had been so long since I had like ever watched it the first time through. And when I watched it the first time through, like I was pregnant through part of it. I must have been because then I named my daughter Taylor. So like, and I remember I was watching the show and I loved that character. So then I named her that. So like, I'm just like, okay, was like pregnancy brain a factor? Can I use that as an excuse? Like,
I don't know. I was like totally not or anything. And I watched it and I don't remember anything. So, I mean, I
yeah.
remembered some very key things and something. I mean, I guess there's one thing we'll talk about at the end of this episode that I remembered very specifically. But it was like the things that I think affected me negatively in the show, I remembered really well. Like
Mm.
with Beckett dying, I remembered that. I just didn't remember when.
Uh, yeah, I didn't remember that. Like, I had no clue. I think the only reason, like, I knew it was going to happen before it happened was because someone had posted about it on a fan page and I
Oh.
saw it. I'm just like, no, spoiler alert. And the fact that, like, I'm sad that's going to happen. Like, what?
Yeah.
Same with Weir. Like, I didn't know. I had forgotten that Weir eventually leaves, and technically dies in it for the most part. Like, so yeah. So it's like I'm terrible with like fully holding on to information, but I can have the excuse that it had been very long since I had watched it. So
I'm curious because
mm.
also because there's so many episodes. I'm curious for people that like do rewatches and if you do many like years between rewatches, which is also reasonable because there's so many episodes. Are there things that you forget and are there things that you never forget? Because
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes some of the people that will be very like specific about commenting or about the show, um a lot of times they'll say like, oh, I've been watching it for like 20 years or whatever, like a really really long time. Like they'll mention they've been watching it for so long, um that I can imagine, yeah, if you've watched it that many times, like of course I would hope it would stick more in the brain, who knows, like than if you just watched it like twice. So
Exactly. Or like, and I mean, I think we both watched Atlantis just one time through before we did this actual rewatch. So a
yeah,
lot of
well, it was the same for me with SG-1. I'd only watched it one time through. Like, I know, like, you sometimes had rewatched it more than that or had it playing in the background for things. So, like, I think you had a lot more knowledge of SG-1 and remembering things with that too, because, like, I'm pretty sure you watched it more than I had.
Mhm.
Because I'd only watched it the one time all the way through, and then watched Atlantis the one time, and then SGU the one time. So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think um some, like I said, I forgot that, for example, McKay's sister shows up,
Hmm.
and I thought I really like that. I mean, I thought it was really cool when they introduced Sam's dad in SG-1 in a way that
Yeah.
he could kind of become a semi-recurring character. And I like the way that they introduced McKay's sister in a way that she could be like kind of like a semi-returning character. Also, it's his real
Yeah.
life sister, which is super
I know.
cool.
Isn't that
I
cool?
love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Like they're actually real life siblings. And I also love the sibling dynamic. And I think they obviously capture it so well.
Yeah.
And I don't think until now we've seen like a sibling dynamic in Stargate. Is that correct? Not that I can
Oh,
think of.
I think you're right.
And so
Yeah.
to me, it's like we've seen quite a few like parent kid, like with Teal'c, and then there was Carter and Carter's dad and some other, but like I don't think we really, I mean, I know Carter has a brother, but I think they showed more the dad with the
Does
brother.
she?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because there's some point where Carter's dad like goes to visit the brother because they're kind of having a falling out, and he goes to talk to him.
Oh.
Um, but like they don't really explore the dynamic much. Like they
Hmm.
don't. I don't think they really ever. Maybe they don't ever appear on screen together. Whereas like with McKay, they're actually on screen, and you get this kind of where she calls him Meredith, and like they
Yeah.
have this like sibling tension, but then also the when the stakes are high, like they really care for each other, and I absolutely love that, and I thought it also
Yeah.
added like this layer to McKay that was really nice to watch.
Yeah, and it's little things too, like the name Meredith,
Hmm.
little things like that add a sense of humor to sometimes serious situations, or just like a more of an insight into the character and maybe what they went through growing up having a name as Meredith, being McKay, like just
Yeah.
like it's just like I think little things like that are so perfect to like have written into the show, like that I just like love, like that it's just like it's really funny. But yeah, I do love the dynamic that he has with his sister. I think too, like also there was you get to see a little bit of the dynamic of what he has with his brother-in-law, right? Like
Mhm.
not too much, but uh and then like they really like kind of, I forget what episode it was. I where they're doing those recordings to speak back to their family and stuff, right? Because like I think I can't remember what episode that was, where I think they all, I don't remember if it was just that they were doing messages back to
Mhm.
their, why were they doing that though? Was this like before? No.
I think it was before they could really go back, and so they would. I can't remember
Yeah.
what, but they were sending message. Everybody was recording message for their.
Yeah. I can't remember if there was something where they thought like they could all potentially die, or was that not the case?
Oh, that's a good question. It was like letters to Pegasus, right? I mean, there might have been letters to Pegasus, right? It was or letters from Pegasus. No. Oh yeah, the team are given an opportunity to send messages to loved ones back on Earth. But I
Mm.
think maybe it's more because there's I think there's that episode of Universe where they're all making the messages because I think they are gonna die or something.
Mm.
Um, but I think they were just sending the messages, if I remember right. Ah,
Yeah, because that's right. Because McKay also was like going on and on and on and on, like about all of his accomplishments, and then it isn't until the final end bit that he like talks to his sister and things like that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, which is interesting. And I also think it's really interesting when you think about the sibling dynamic, that McKay on the one hand is like they're actually the complete opposite. That she is basically so secure. You could kind of perceive it this way. She's so secure in like herself and her like ability that she doesn't feel like she needs to use it to to prove that she's worthy. So she's actually not engaging in that at all. She's just focusing
Yeah.
on other things. McKay is the complete opposite. He has no, until like later in the series, he pursues no outside relationships, and his entire identity comes from the science in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's kind of interesting that they have that sort of opposing um, identity dynamic, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
for sure. Um, what are your thoughts of like, like how we're talking about relationships, right? Like with his sister and with friends and everything. What are your thoughts with how he treats Sam? Like, um, it's like, because when we first are introduced to McKay, that was what we were both saying we didn't like, is because of kind of how arrogant and weird he was. Like, I personally didn't like initially the dynamic that he has with Carter. Um, and just because it just gives me the ick, like he just seems like an icky person. But then as it progresses and you see little clips here and there of him with Carter, then it just kind of becomes, I think, more humorous, less icky feeling. um and and then even when like he hallucinates her, right, when he
Yeah,
is
yeah,
um stuck in the ship in the water, like even then it doesn't fully give like a sleazy slimy vibe that it used to give. Like, so it's
yeah,
like their dynamic over time, like I grew to appreciate, yet there's still an element of annoyance like that I feel, because I feel like it's only with her that he gets kind of like uh just kind of that creepy vibe of like if some random guy's like hitting on some girl at a bar or something,
yeah.
and they're just kind of slimy, like they're trying to like really like up themselves, and you're just like, okay, this guy's a tool. Like, um that's the vibe, like I feel like he has like an underlying vibe with Carter sometimes,
Yes.
that I don't like, that I don't see him do with other people.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I mean I actually really like, especially later on, the Carter and McKay dynamic, because it's kind of more banter focused. And
Yeah.
I think in the end, like he has this thing for her. The part I don't like about the Carter McKay dynamic is that when she actually comes to Atlantis, and I know it's probably because they didn't want to make it like a big part of the show and he was dating someone else, they kind of nixed it right away, by him like telling her, "Oh, I'm in a relationship, so don't even think about it, blah blah blah." But I actually think it could have been really cool if it kind of remained the same. Especially, there's not really so much necessarily screen time for there to be really any conflict in McKay's relationships, really like to that complicated degree. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think it's more realistic that he would, since he obviously has some kind of feelings for Carter, they're not really going to just go away. So I would imagine even when she came, there's some element of that relationship between them still there, even though, he's in a relationship and obviously she's in a relationship. That kind of weird kind of tension and banter, I think, wouldn't go away.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that, because I never thought about it like that. Because initially, like, I was thinking, like, when they have him say that line of, like, oh, I'm dating, who was he
Mm-hmm.
dating at the time? Was it
Kate, I think, yeah.
Kate? Um, and I thought, like, oh, well, that's like really humorous, because it's like it's been so long and he still like acts like maybe
Yeah.
Carter would have something for, something, like he always acted like Carter like was attracted to him, which I don't think she ever was. It was kind of in his head. Or at least that's how I perceived it. And so I thought, like, in my mind initially, I thought, oh, that's kind of like perfect because it's kind of funny that like he even
Yeah.
feels the need to like mention that, because that's like the furthest thing from Carter's mind. And then it also shows that like the thing that I felt like that interaction also showed is how he, because didn't he initially think that he was going to get chosen to be in charge? Like I
Yes.
think he like was so convinced that he was going to be chosen to be in charge, and so then the way he acted, like to try and not show that it bothered him, that then of course it's Carter that gets it, you know, instead of him. Like I feel like they also showed that reaction well.
Hmm.
But now that you mention that that could have been more of a thing with him and Carter, and maybe still have it, like I think that could have worked actually really nicely, because it could have created conflict within his relationship
Yeah.
with Kate. And so, is it Kate or Katie? I for some reason thought it was Katie. I don't
Oh,
know.
maybe it is Katie. You're probably right. It's probably Katie.
Um,
Um,
but anyways, like I feel like that actually could have been like a really good little thing to add, is have it be like a little bit of trouble in paradise kind of thing for
yep.
them, where everything's going good, and then Carter comes to Atlantis, and then suddenly he's distracted by that, and then she
Oh,
gets
totally.
like, and so, and even if it was just like throughout like one episode, I think that would have made sense, and like maybe made more sense than just like you said, like just kind of cutting it off like from the beginning, and just like acting like it's not an issue, because like he did like her for so long that I would imagine it would be an issue, um
Yeah.
when she arrives. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you think like I mean, in SG-1, for example, I mean, Carter obviously likes O'Neill the whole time, right? Like this is quite clear that she likes O'Neill the whole time. But she also likes Nareem. I mean, there's Nareem, there's Martooth, there's like a ton of them that kind of, when they're there, like it's kind of reignited, even though O'Neill is kind of like
Yeah,
also always there. And so I think, I mean, maybe they just didn't want to have so much screen time of them back and forth. And maybe they felt like it was complicated because now she's in a leadership role. But I also feel like at that point, you could almost maybe even exploit it more, because McKay would be more, um, almost more like it could explore that, whether he's getting more threatened or maybe whether he's grown more, but
yeah,
I mean, still, I think between the two of them, you're right. Like the dynamic he has with him and Carter, it's always been very, very like kind of tense. There's like this
yeah.
tension.
Yeah. And I think that's what was always like weird to me when you're first introduced to his character, because like I don't know, and maybe you could tell me what you think of this. I don't know if it's just like an acting thing, because sometimes it weirds me out in shows. Like I put myself in that position and I think, how strange would that be, talking so closely to someone? Like sometimes they have characters talk so closely. And in real life, you wouldn't talk to someone right here and get all in their face and start talking. Like that would be like a massive like weirdness of like my personal bubble. Like, and I feel like when you're introduced to McKay, when McKay and Carter are talking, there have been like scenes where she's talking like weirdly close to his face. And I don't know if that's just like common in the acting world as a way to get a certain type of shot, or if that's supposed to like indicate that she has some sort of like interest in him,
Yeah.
because like it just kind of weirds me out. Like for me personally, like I like to be a decent distance away from people.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, and I honestly think Carter liked him a little bit. Like even if she like didn't know it, or if it was more like, like somehow like, sometimes there's those people like they really irritate you or something. They really like make you mad, but you actually kind of realize like later on, oh, I kind of like you have like some kind of feelings for them or something. But like
Hmm.
you also they really annoy you in some way. Um,
Yeah,
so I think it could be this
it
like
could be that. Yeah.
a little bit, but yeah, I actually like I think in a parallel universe, if they like ended up together or something, I think it would kind of be one of those like really intense but over quickly relationships.
Oh, didn't they have it?
Yes,
So
they did.
they
They
did
were.
have
And they
that,
were
like,
totally divorced.
yeah, yeah. Which
So
would
yeah.
also make sense too. Like
Yes.
I could see that. That's kind of funny.
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
mean, but honestly, like I like, to me that was always weird though, because I don't know if I could ever actually imagine Carter truly being interested in him to the point that she would have dated him and then got
Yeah, yeah.
married.
Oh
Like the
yeah, of course.
married thing, like
No, 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 no,
that
no.
always weirded me out. Her and Jack, sure, I can see
Yeah, yeah.
that. Even her and any of her other like romantic interests, I can see that. But with McKay, it was just always a layer of awkward there that
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so on the topic of marriage, were you surprised that he like because then after he dated Katie, Kate,
yeah, I think it's
the
Katie. Yeah.
Katie, the botanist. Um, so he dated Katie for actually quite some time. And I think that that particularly was a point of showing some character development. Because there were some things I think that happened in the relationship that were, various kind of tensions, and they kind of gave an opportunity for McKay to grow a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the end, he wanted to ask her to marry him, but I think it was around then that like things fell apart, right? Slightly
Mm-hmm.
after that. Um,
Yeah, they basically had it that it was when they were in that lockdown thing, right?
yep.
And so like he that whole time was planning on proposing to her, and then because of being kind of stuck in the same room together, it kind of, and like they kept like, I don't know if they kept getting on each other's nerves or something. He kept thinking he was like dying. Um, that then like I guess maybe that must have made him realize that he didn't want to, like that he wasn't ready
Yes.
for that. But I
Yep.
honestly always kind of just got the feeling like it was more of like he just kind of chickened out, like he was just
Yep.
scared, but he actually did want to. So like there was a part of me that kind of expected it to still work and that they stay together. And I didn't like how it so abruptly ended and then she was just kind of like gone.
Yeah.
But when I looked into last time one of our episodes when we talked about, which her name is Katie, I just looked up Katie Brown.
Uh-huh.
Um last time when we talked about that character, I remember I had looked up that the actress herself had retired from acting around that
Mhm.
same time. And so I have a feeling that that's why they stopped the relationship on the show, because I think then the actress was leaving. And so they had to come up with something and
Right.
just chose to have it be that. Cause I kind of feel like maybe, I don't know if I feel like they would have actually had them get married. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think it would have been cute. I think that I really liked them as a couple. But I'm not sure if they would have had something happen where that never ended up happening. But I think normally I would have imagined that to take a longer period of time than just have it be that because they were in like a lockdown situation and he chickened out asking, that suddenly
Yep.
she just assumed that they were broken up and then got reassigned somewhere. Like that to me seems quite extreme. Like it doesn't seem like something Katie Brown would do. Like I
Yeah.
feel like she was so understanding the whole time with his like quirks of kind of almost self-sabotaging the relationship a little bit, and being so understanding and kind, that I think that's what got them together in the first place. That to then just have it be that she just kind of leaves like was weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think what would have been maybe more realistic, and I guess that the problem is they didn't know how long the show was going to go on at this point. But it was only really 2 years, or like a year and a half or something. It wasn't very long, actually. Maybe it was even less. Like maybe it was really just it was closer to the end of the fourth season, that episode. I mean, I think it would have been totally reasonable that her character just didn't appear on screen and it was kind of a mention. Oh yeah, and I have a date with Katie. I mean,
Yeah.
because I don't think it's not necessarily so necessary that the person is shown. I mean, you until Taylor's like her partner is really like part of the story. There's a long period of time where you hear about the baby's father, but he doesn't really
True. That's a
appear.
good point.
And so I think if they knew in advance, they could have just kind of left it, and it could have been just kind of like a in passing. Oh, hey, like how's Katie doing? Oh, great. You know, we have a nice date. She's on the mainland right now, which makes sense. She's a botanist, so
Yeah.
like, we're gonna have a beautiful vacation, that kind of thing. So
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Um, so then fast forwarding from that to when he is interested in Keller and Keller is interested in him, and then eventually they become a thing. Um, I know you have some opinions about that. So yeah, I don't know if you
yeah.
want to first like talk
Yeah,
about that.
it's funny because that's something I really remember from the first time I watched it through, and it was something I hated. Like I
Hmm.
couldn't stand that they got together. Like I didn't like this aspect of the show. And it's funny because like personality wise, I don't think there's any issue. Like if you watch it, I don't think there's any like personality disconflict, especially because she's kind of a little bit anxious too. Like when she's with Taylor, she's kind of acting in this certain way, and she's also in this intellectual field. She's doctor. Um, and so I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with the relationship in terms of that these two people would get together. What I can't stand is that, I mean, I'm just gonna say in Stargate, like personally, I find all of the people that are portraying roles of people that, for example, McKay could date, so people that are of the gender that he's interested in, they're all very good looking. So it's not like I really think that there's any that are necessarily better than others, or that there's some, and they're also all like top of their field. They're all academics. They're
Hmm.
all kind of on the same level as McKay. And
Hmm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with McKay. If you were like, nice, attractive at the top of your field person, and you met McKay at work, I don't think it would be unreasonable that you would start dating, especially
Hmm.
considering everybody in this show is like, they're not 18,
Yeah.
and so I feel like the part I don't like is that, especially after they get together, it is so brought up that it's unrealistic that she's with him, or that he's so lucky that she's with him, because when you really think
Yeah.
about it, it's not that unusual that he would date somebody that is working as a doctor.
Yeah.
I think they try to make it that like he shouldn't be with someone good looking, which is also weird because I mean, of course, Katie was also very good looking, and
Yeah.
like, it's not like there's any so personally, I feel like that aspect of it was very strange. Um,
Yeah.
and I didn't like it. I thought, what's wrong with just having them be together? Like, why can't they
Yeah.
be together and we don't bring it up? Because it's like, this isn't like high school. Like
Yeah.
it's not like someone's go, oh, the nerd. Like it's kind of a point where you're communicating with people, and people that are like you gravitate towards.
That
I
is
just,
so true.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel like it did a little bit of like a disservice to McKay, because it's not like, I mean, honestly, it's not like it's someone that you go, oh my God, I would never date that guy, especially like, working with him in Atlantis or something where you would get to know him. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just that seemed to me a little bit, that part was a little bit strange.
Yeah. That is very true. Like I honestly didn't put much thought into that initially. Because I think sadly that kind of thing tends to get portrayed, I think, in shows sometimes where you get used to seeing it that I think it can put a seed in someone's head to kind of almost think like that, like think, oh yeah, like, oh, he's kind of the nerdy character, and he should be like grateful that, oh look, this, and like, not that I was thinking that, but I feel like it could potentially put that viewpoint in the viewer
Mm-hmm.
watching it. And it's not uncommon in the real world, I think, for people to judge people based off of appearance and stuff too, which I again, either people, there's nothing wrong with their appearance. So it's kind of
Yeah,
like,
that's what I, that, yeah,
like they
exactly.
kind of treat him like, like he's like this horribly like unattractive human, which is just one, mean, but two, like not,
It's
it's just,
completely not true. I mean,
yeah,
again, it's a TV show. Like everybody in the TV show is attractive. Like they're not
yeah,
they're not putting people that are like, ugly on the TV. They're all
Yeah.
attractive. And
Yeah.
honestly, like if you walked on the street and you saw McKay and Keller, you wouldn't be like, oh, like I mean, I know we've all seen it, like in reality shows when they have like specifically a person that is like, extremely rich, and so they are looking a certain way, and they're with someone that is clearly looking at another way. But if you saw, McKay and Keller on the street, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, why is she with him? You'd be like, oh, hey, it's cool. Like he looks
Yeah,
good at me.
exactly. So like, yeah, I would agree after you brought up that point that that was even in the storyline, that that does irritate me about that too. I do like them though as a couple. Like I think it never, initially it felt strange, and I think the only reason it felt strange was because I never initially expected it. Like I also thought it was kind of strange with her and Ronan flirting. I thought that was
Yeah, that was weird.
strange. Um Really, I just felt like they were trying to push her character into being involved with someone,
Yeah.
and I just feel like both people that they were pushing her towards initially, it felt very strange to me just because um yeah, I mean, just sometimes you just don't imagine people being with people not based off of look or anything like that, just that you don't really think about it. And so initially it was strange to me. And then um I feel like as like so at first I didn't know how I felt about them being together. It felt a little odd, but then as it kind of continued, and then every now and then they'd have like in an episode something happen between the two of them, then I thought it was kind of sweet. And like um oh, what was the name of the episode where they were both on the plane and went to that conference thing?
Yeah, 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 I know what you mean. It's like
uh
mind blow or something like that.
yeah,
Brainstorm.
brainstorm. What did you call it? Mind blown.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's close. Mind blow,
Uh-huh.
brainstorm. I knew it was something with
um
brain.
yeah, like with that one, I remember you not liking that like their dynamic in that, right? Like you.
At the end, I didn't really feel like it was fitting with SG-1 and Atlantis that they did the whole Mile High Club thing.
Mm,
In universe, they do that crap, but it's very set up from the first scene that this is part of the show. And in Atlantis and SG-1, they don't really. I mean, it's sometimes implied, but not in that way. And so it felt very forced. To me, it felt very awkward and forced. That
yeah.
that aspect. Like if they would have just ended like they're on the plane and like maybe they just give each other a look and it's like implied in that Stargate way, then I would have been like, okay, cool, nice ending, But like the fact that they spoke it out loud, I think to me is what, like, come on.
It was a little weird, right? Like I think that's, now that like we're talking about it and I'm actually thinking about it, like things that didn't necessarily stick out to me at the time, as we're talking about it, I'm like, oh, you're right, that was a little strange. Like so I think that's maybe what I've felt from the relationship, is initially there was always something a little strange. It's the only way I know how
Yeah.
to put it. Like something felt a little awkward, a little strange. But at the same time, I kind of feel like they wanted it to feel awkward to people. Like, it's kind of like they kind of have McKay act in a way like he doesn't believe she actually wants to do that, almost like she's joking, and then she's like serious, and then he's like, oh, like at least that's my memory of it, is kind of like he's like, oh, cool, and like then he's all for it. But like, so it's kind of like it kind of fits that stereotype that I think maybe they were trying to put them in, which is, like you said, if they were like high schoolers, he'd be like the nerdy person that got the popular girl. And that's kind
Yeah.
of like the vibe they have between the two of them, which again, like you've mentioned, is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's also
yeah.
funny because if they were in high, I mean, she's going into medicine, like she's a doctor, she's also a nerd. So actually it is completely strange. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like like he went out on Atlantis base and like met a random like stripper or something.
Yeah.
And like, that's like, and like dating him, and it's very and then I would be kind of like, yeah, why do you want to be with me? Like I'm have nothing in common with you. But it's like it's
Yeah.
someone they have a lot in common. Like so
Yeah.
actually it's very strange that anyone would question. I mean, maybe that's like, it's sweet that they're together, and it's awkward that that people would think it would be unusual. Like
Yeah.
actually her and Ronan make zero sense. Like they would have far less in common.
And it was so weird too with that because I feel like Ronan just suddenly out of nowhere was interested in her.
Yeah.
And like Ronan just always cracks me up anyways because I feel like just Jason Momoa in general, he always has a twinkle in his eye about everyone,
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
everyone and
100%.
everything. He always just has that sneaky look, like just permanently there. Um,
Yeah.
and this may be an unpopular opinion, so hopefully no one comes for me, but like I feel like that's Jason Momoa. Like that's him. Like I feel like initially like and I love the Ronan character, but I remember initially with that and I'm sorry, I know we're talking about this, but it was a little hard for me to at first kind of get into the character because I felt like it was just me watching Jason Momoa. Like it was just kind of like he always has that little sneaky twinkle in his eye with all of his characters.
I mean, it's impossible. I think maybe if you have a weird twinkle, it's like impossible to not have a weird twinkle. Like maybe that's just, but yeah, no, I mean, it's also, I mean, it's interesting because it's also like what his first actual big role. So maybe that's like the closest to him, maybe. I don't know. I also can't say because I've only seen, I think, the thing that he was in was the episode where he was in the Game of Thrones, which is a very specific scene. So I'm not
Well,
sure that there would be anything different with Sneaky
in
Look.
all fairness, I don't think I actually have really fully seen him in other things. Like I know he's like Aquaman and all of that, but I've never watched any of those movies. It's more of like I guess the reason I mention it's Jason Momoa is because I've seen him on a lot of interviews.
Okay, gotcha.
And so maybe different characters he that would be interesting to actually now watch some of the other things he's in and see how those characters are. I'd be curious. Um because whenever I've seen him in like interviews like with like other people, he always has that like lit up look in his eyes and he just looks like he's ready to be like pull a prank on someone or like he just seems sneaky and it's just kind of like he has that permanent flirty look in his face, I think. And so it's like um
Either he's gonna like pull a prank or fall in love, and you don't know which.
so it's just like I think that's why like I thought that but like initially when I watched Atlantis like I never knew who Jason Momoa was. So like um and then it was later down the line that then like he became Jason Momoa where everyone like knows him. So but yeah, anyways, that was off topic, but yeah, so basically I mean, did you have anything else that you wanted to mention about McKay and Keller and that dynamic? Or I mean, I feel like you've said a lot with it, but I wasn't sure if there's anything else you
Oh
needed
yeah,
to add.
I complained a lot. No, no, no. I mean, I think in the end, like I mean, McKay had an amazing trajectory. I'm really looking forward to see what he does on Universe. I mean, I'm sure it's not like a large, um, but it could be because I mean, I won't say anything because you're not quite as far along. But when you get there, there might be some nice surprises in store for you at the end of the season.
Hmm. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. Um, what was I gonna say? I can't remember at the end of Atlantis, then is he still with Keller?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah. Which again, that's like I think it's fine. But then like one of the last things he says is like he makes it like he's lucky to have her. And I think if they never put any emphasis on that before, it wouldn't bother me. But I think that's it sticks out. And I think that's one of those things
Yeah.
like when I watched it the first time, I couldn't quite put my finger on what was bothering me about it. But this was, I think, before like there was this show at the time called Big Bang Theory. Maybe you've seen it or parts
Mhm.
of it or heard of it. And there the main character was called Leonard, and then there was this like character across the hall that he was always interested in, and she was Penny, and she was like kind of a working to be an actress, and it was kind of like always made that she was out of his league. And then
Mhm.
throughout the show, basically, when they finally get together, it's like sort of joked about that she's with him because like he wore her down and blah blah blah. And I think people kind of talked about that a lot because it's like for a lot of reasons that's not good. And it also kind of, highlights more this like, nerds shouldn't get like the attractive girls or something. And in this case, it was actually someone that wasn't in an academic field or kind of where they would necessarily
Yeah.
mate organically, like because they have
Yeah.
similar interests. So I think that's kind of why it was made that way. And I think at that time, like, I mean, this part of Atlantis is kind of around the time when a lot of that stuff was very popular. So I think
Yeah.
maybe that's why. And like you mentioned that that's kind of thought of in a lot of things, like, the
Yeah. I mean, I think too, like it's so common, like, um, I think sometimes to hear people kind of downplay themselves and then talk highly of their partner, which I think, in my opinion, like it's wonderful to think something nice of your partner. I'm not saying that, but really like and even being grateful for them, that's different. So it's like you could kind of take it in a few different ways. You could kind of just take it that he's just like so grateful that she's in his life and he doesn't mean it in a way that she's better than him, you know? Or you could take it as he still feels like she's better than him and
Yeah.
that he's grateful, like, oh, he got that person, which if that's the case, that's really annoying.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
feel like people need to respect themselves enough to realize they're just as valuable in their relationship as the person they're with, and that there should be that mutual, like,
Yeah.
gratefulness for each other in a very like healthy way, as opposed to like someone feeling less than and thinking, oh my gosh, I got that. It's kind of like, like um what that kind of dynamic reminds me of is like you think of like the teen movies of
Yeah.
like maybe like some weird movie where like maybe they have like a high school girl that meets a celebrity and then the celebrity like is interested in her and she can't believe he could possibly be interested in her, that kind of dynamic that is just icky.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I mean, I think in this case, like, I think what makes it a little bit more problematic to me is when other characters are surprised that McKay is dating her.
Yeah, because Shepard was always surprised,
They're
right?
like,
He was
oh,
always kind of like not believing him that they
and
were even together.
it's like, come on. It is extremely like, what is it, like the most unlikely, like the likely thing he's dating a doctor? Like, it's like the most
Yeah.
expected thing, actually. Like, really the
Yeah.
most expected thing. Like,
Yeah.
if he started dating Ronan, I might be a little surprised. They're kind of opposites, but maybe
Yeah.
maybe that would work. But
I mean, I do feel like with Katie, they kind of portrayed Katie as like she was supposed to be like a nerd.
mhm.
So I feel like maybe that's why they didn't give the vibe of like, oh, she's out of his league, because they kind of almost made it like she was a little bit supposed to be like that stereotypical
Like
nerd with her
geeky, yeah,
plants.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I mean, and I never really thought, I mean, I kind of like get annoyed by the term nerd in the sense like I was talking about this once with my daughter and we were saying, nerd is actually cool. Like, why do people
Yeah,
always like call nerds like things like if you like sci-fi, if you like Stargate, if you like anything really that makes you that individual, it's like, oh, they're so nerdy. It's like, so I think a lot of people are like proud to be like have that term now or be weird or whatever. But
yeah.
like I definitely feel like there's certain stereotypes that try and make that something that's like a negative when really it's not. So
Oh, totally, totally. I mean, obviously, but maybe we're biased because we're also nerds.
yes, yurds. I said yurds
Yours.
unite. Nerds unite.
Nerds unite. So I guess a good thing to ask the audience. I mean, other than, what do you think about McKay? How do you like the character? I know he's a fan favorite, so hopefully we'll get lots of comments saying, I love McKay. Did your thoughts about him change from his first appearance to his last? And what do you think about his relationships?